I'd like to obviously talk about why I feel like this topic is important, not just for us as individuals, but as a movement, and who I am, like kind of what I'm coming in with in terms of my experience and my tools. Obviously, I'm here because I experienced burnout and I found some tools that help me not just overcome burnout, but really like find a flourishing life in my work. And we'll do some grounding and settling meditation. We'll also incorporate some yoga movement and principles, because I definitely, and if you're anything like me and you're at a summit or you're at your desk, it really helps to get moving. And then we'll do a little bit of social connection. We'll talk about our experiences with burnout in smaller groups. We'll share that briefly in the larger group. And we'll talk about beliefs, kind of what beliefs or mindsets, either culturally or personally, kind of leads to this experience of burnout, and then what we might be able to do about that. And then I'll share in more detail what my process was to go from burned out to flourishing. And if you have something to take notes with, that's great. And I'll also share with you at the end how you can continue this journey with me at a later time. All right, so why are we talking about burnout? We've already seen in the chat, 2020 for me, and I think a lot of people, was quite the year. And it's really not just 2020. I think kind of our experience with a lot of different pressures coming at us from different directions kind of bled into 2021. And a lot of folks I'm finding are experiencing burnout and they're suffering with that, right? Folks are also needing help integrating back into their lives or figuring out what life looks like now. And the other thing that I wanted to bring to the summit in particular, the folks in the regenerative movement are, I believe, among some of our greatest assets. We rely on everyone here to do the work that is necessary to really transition us into a regenerative future. And what I'm concerned about is, what if the pressures of this work burn them out? You know, how does it impact our future? And the other thing that I learned researching burnout is burnout can be contagious in an organization or group. So if one person starts to experience burnout, it can have a ripple effect to other people in the organization. So obviously there's a lot at stake here, and it's definitely worth looking at burnout, not just at the individual level, but also the organizational and the movement level. So with that being said, a little bit about me. So going back at the beginning of my career, I have held positions in leadership in cooperative business. I've held positions on nonprofit executive boards. I'm a community organizer. I'm an environmental activist. I've had a lot of responsibility with topics and causes that I care very much about, and I put a lot into it. I've experienced burnout at different points in my career as well. But I'm also a lifelong learner and very passionate about sharing things that helped me with other people. So hopefully I'll be bringing some tools to you that you'll also find valuable. So in addition to that experience, I became a yoga teacher, primarily to help me deal with burnout. I thought immersing myself in these yoga practices and tools, when you ask yourself to teach, you learn very deeply, and that's really what I wanted. Then I also became a permaculture designer because I identified my care for environmental health was so great. I wanted to take a more active role. So I became a permaculture designer, and then I started organizing in my community, getting people involved in different hands-on projects, starting a community composting project where I live, inspiring others to do so, creating a network of community composters, and then also being an executive board member for a local nonprofit. So lots of opportunities for work, lots of opportunities for overextending myself in various areas, not being aware of it at the time, but kind of excited about the work, but then realizing, maybe some of the stress is contributing to what is perceived as burnout. So just to talk a little bit about what burnout is. And you might have other definitions, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But burnout's typically characterized by chronic stress. It can show up lack of motivation, desire to do things. It's hard to kind of get yourself to do the work sometimes. It can bleed into other areas, just kind of feeling a general fatigue. And so what's the impact? You know, for a lot of folks, quality of life is reduced, right? And again, it can cause that ripple effect. So yeah, big bags under the eyes in the chat. I agree. So just to take a little bit of a deeper dive into causes of burnout, for what I recognized for myself, I was putting a lot of, I would say, disproportionate amount of time and energy into one category of my life. If you look at your life, you see there are many different areas, right? You've got health and fitness, your emotional life, intellectual life, social, career, finance. If you're a parent, or if you have parents, there's that whole section, right? So I noticed in my career, I was putting a lot of time and energy into the business. I was also an activist, so I was contributing a lot to my community. And I saw the cost directly, maybe not in the moment, but afterwards, to my health, my energy. I did not have the time for my social relationships. And so my quality of life was affected. And so to give you another example of how burnout can show up, if you're a caregiver, so if you have a parent or someone in your family like I did that had an illness, you might need to switch gears and focus on caring for this individual. And that's something that happened to me. And so I put my career on hold, and I cared for my parent over several months. And afterwards, I experienced burnout. And one of the things I noticed was, you know, not having energy and attention on the other areas like career, social, emotional. I experienced that imbalance, and the result was this sense of stress, fatigue, difficulty. And I think another example of burnout that a lot of folks might be able to relate to is the burnout that came with the pandemic, or any other situation where you find yourself maybe cut off from support in different areas in your life without backup. So for folks, you know, the gym's closed. For me, my martial arts class closed during the pandemic. I got so much from being able to train with my friends, exercise for my health and fitness, social connection. A lot of folks, their livelihoods were affected. And so you can kind of see how these conditions led to this sense of chronic stress, which I would define as burnout. And I think the big takeaway for me was I wasn't filling my cup, right? Like we've all heard, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Has anyone ever heard? Show of hands. It's not really possible. We try sometimes, but you find, okay, the cup is empty, and then it's really hard to find the energy to fill it back up. And I found by not focusing on and prioritizing those things, those habits that really help to enliven me and support the other areas of my life, you can't really make your highest level of contribution. When we care so much about the planet, our communities, the transition movement, we know it's super important to be able to give to that area, but we want to make sure we're giving to ourselves so that we can give from the overflow. So that's what I'm hoping to stimulate in our practice today. So that being said, I'd like to bring us into a meditation. So I definitely want to incorporate some of the tools that I use today. So I would invite you to find a comfortable seat. So you might want to adjust yourself in your chair, maybe place your feet on the floor or a surface underneath you, get grounded. And then if it feels accessible to you, I'd invite you to gently close your eyes. If that feels like too much, you can just soften your gaze and lower your eyes, but whatever feels the most comfortable to you. And just letting the mind begin to settle. Now nowhere to go, nothing to do other than being here right now. Just noticing what's coming up in your consciousness. It might be thoughts, something on your to-do list that's kind of nagging you in the back of your mind. Just noticing that and letting it, like a cloud, pass right through your consciousness. Just trying to move a little bit more towards stillness. Just imagining now, if you would, you've got a jar, an empty mason jar, and you're taking it to the river. You're taking a big scoop of water out of this river. So you want to see what's inside. You know that there's some soil in this river, in this pond, this body of water, and you want to see the composition. So you take this big scoop of water, you put the lid back on, you shake it up. You notice the lid, the water in the mason jar is muddy. It's kind of cloudy. It's kind of our mind before we move into meditation. We close our eyes and we ask ourselves to still. Over time, we start to notice, just like in the water, you'll see different layers of silt, organic matter, maybe sand, start to develop in different layers. So the picture becomes clearer, and then the water on top becomes clearer. Just letting the mind settle. I'd like to bring your attention to your breath. So just noticing, without judging or changing your breath right now, notice where you can feel the breath present most in your body. That could be the motion of your belly. It could be the sensation of the breath as it passes in and out of your nostrils. And I'd like to invite you to put a hand perhaps on your heart and a hand on your belly, just to bring a little bit more sensory information so you can witness this breath. Noticing how the inhale happens, how the exhale happens. Building some self-awareness. And taking this beginner's mind approach, being really curious. Noticing if there's a pattern. Is the inhale and the exhale, are they even? Does the breath catch anywhere? Just noticing. Also noticing if the mind has begun to take over again with any thoughts that are pulling at your consciousness, and just without judgment, turn it back to your observation of the breath. Now I'll ask you to change your hand positions and place both hands on your belly. And do what you can to make this inhale just a little bit deeper. Exhaling whenever you feel comfortable at your own pace. Just bring some more awareness to the belly. Inhaling, feeling the belly. Exhaling, feeling the belly. I'd like you on your next breath, your hands in your belly, feel that, but then move your hands to your rib cage and take a little bit deeper breath into your ribs. And then exhaling whenever you feel the need. Inhaling through the belly, a little bit deeper into the ribs, and then out again. And just a couple more at your own pace. Expanding those ribs. Maybe lifting the chest a little more to let in just a little bit more air. And then you can let your hands go. You can place them back on your lap or your legs. And then I'd like you to notice the exhale in particular. So your inhale, you can count it out, maybe three seconds. On the exhale, maybe 4 seconds. So if you'd like to go with me, it would be inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4. And continue at your own pace, just making this exhale just a little bit deeper than the inhale. Very good. One last little practice in our meditation, just like to invite you to move into a body scan. And you can also incorporate any movement. So I want you to kind of explore as we scan from head to toe. I'd like you to explore any areas of the body that are telling you something. It could be tightness, numbness, tingling, pain, dullness, aching, or maybe it feels great and notice that as well. So I'll just take you through. We'll kind of go through beginning at the top of the head, noticing what that area feels like. Just being curious. Making a mental note. How does the rest of the head feel? Moving into the neck. And you can lift your shoulders up and maybe roll them back and just kind of explore moving your head side to side, seeing what you feel. Good. Moving into the shoulders, chest, upper back. You can round your back like a cow shape, moving the spine, seeing what the spine feels like. What does your belly feel like? Is it relaxed or tense? Moving now into your hips, top of your thighs, back of the legs, kneecaps, feeling into your calves, your shins, ankles, and then finally your feet. Just making a mental note of what you noticed. All right. I'd like to gently bring you back now to the room, so you can maybe wiggle fingers and toes. Maybe stretch your arms overhead if that feels like a balancing movement to you, shifting side to side. And then when you're ready, you can begin to gently open your eyes, bring yourselves back to the room. And for my information, to inform the rest of the class, I'd love to know what you discovered about your body. If you notice any areas of tension in particular, please share in the chat with me. Maybe you had some tight shoulders, neck tension. Maybe there's a headache. Maybe you feel great, share that too. Shoulders and neck, lower back. Shoulder rolls relieve some tension. I'm glad to hear that. Great. Tense shoulders and neck. Short on sleep. Yes, that was yesterday for me. Yes, slowing down is so key. Slowing down, bringing that self-awareness, checking in with you. Right, because we need that feedback. We need feedback to inform the decisions we make, right? When to pause, when to set limits or boundaries. Yeah, some gentle stretches. We'll do some more movement in a bit. But I'd love to, now that we've kind of got folks grounded and arrived and maybe more relaxed, I'd love to send you into breakout rooms of 2 to 3 people. And what I'd like for you to discuss is just share maybe a personal experience of burnout, whether it's past or current, in as much detail as you feel comfortable with. But what I'd like you to discover amongst yourselves is, what did it feel like, right? Like, what showed up? The other thing I'd like for you to think about is, what's the cost of burnout in your life? Maybe you haven't really had time to think about it, but in everything, there's a trade-off, right? And there's something that we give up. So I'll go ahead and get you into some breakout rooms, but we'll probably do this for about 6 minutes or so. So amongst yourselves, if you don't mind picking a facilitator, just someone to be aware of time and making sure that everyone has a chance to share. And then when we come back, I'll have a couple of folks as spokespeople for the group. We'll just share from a couple of breakout groups so we can kind of glean the information that came up. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was a nice experience for you. I find that talking about kind of what I'm going through really helps me. That's social support is critical, I think, as a strategy for myself, at least. Yeah, not enough time. I know this could totally be like a 3-hour workshop. And actually, like, I intend on creating like a part 2. So at the end, I'll share with you how you can connect with me again, and we take a deeper dive. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'd love to hear from a couple of folks. If you feel comfortable, you can share, broad brushstrokes. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to use names or specific things, but if you want to raise your hand digitally or your real hand and you'd like to share, I'd love to invite you to unmute and share just a little bit about what you talked about. I think Petra had her hand up.
Yeah. Hi. I just want to say that my breakout was lovely. It was with one other person, and we're both in our 60s, and we just shared how we're reinventing. We're at a stage where we're just pausing and reinventing ourselves again for another new adventure with a different focus, and how this felt like a safe space and very restful, and sort of a great opportunity to gather with others, which I find I've been enjoying on Zoom, finding like-minded people to create community. So thank you.
Oh, wonderful. That's really great to hear. Thank you for the feedback. Anyone else like to share broad brushstrokes, what you discussed? I see Jonathan raise his hand. Yes.
I got a great idea from Mark. which he brought from somewhere else. When you're feeling overwhelmed with work and feel like the entire effort depends on you, create a display of who else is doing what, so you realize it's actually not all on you.
Yeah, awareness. Feedback. And Rachel had her hand up as well.
We had a lovely time. It was rushed though, because there was 3 of us. But it was really special, just a nice 6 minutes to really connect with 2 strangers. And there was a common theme that I noticed of burnout and grief, of the loss of loved ones, and how there's not enough time to process that in our busy lives, and then even the grief of the dying planet, or you could see the grief that really permeates our lives these days, and how tied up in burnout that is.
There is so much. I totally agree, and I'm sure many of you can relate to the many levels of grief, right? The loss of normalcy, of loved ones, of routines. It can be very disturbing, and it's been a very long time that we've been in a disrupted state. So I can appreciate your sentiments, and thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's hard sometimes to share from a deep space in our hearts. So I commend your courage for sharing that. All right, so I want to be mindful of our time, and we talked about doing a little bit of movement. So if it's something of interest to you, I'd love to invite you to do some movement with me. Now, I know that we have the constraints of Zoom and our spaces, and we have different bodies and we're showing up in different ways today. So just some very gentle movements. I just love to get off of our feet. So if it's possible in your space, if you can push your chair back, and I'll try to stand back here so you can see me. Okay. Sometimes I like to stand up during a meeting. We can have a stand-up meeting. So if it's accessible to you, if you want to stand up with me, you can also do some of these things seated. So if you prefer to sit, we can sit. And so I'd like you to just think about the areas of your body that spoke to you during that body scan, and just pay extra special attention. We don't want to make any movements that are going to bring us past our edge, right? And you're past edge when you experience an increase of pain, numbness, tingling, your breath starts to catch and you can't breathe very deeply. So just be aware of that. And I'd like you to stand with your feet hip widths apart. And just kind of notice where your pelvis is, your hips are in relation to your knees. Noticing the balance between your left foot and your right foot, and trying to find that equilibrium. We'll just meet in what's called mountain pose. And so finding the best mountain pose for you right now, meeting yourself where you are. You can imagine a string attached to the top of your head, and it's pulling you up. So drawing upwards through your spine to the top of your head. You can bring your shoulders up and then roll them back and let them kind of drop. You notice your shoulders are rounded. You can open your palms so they face forward. Just bring your breath back, becoming aware of it. Taking a little bit deeper breath here. And then extending that exhale a little bit deeper. Just being curious about where you are right now. No judgment, just noticing. And then if you have the space around you, I'd like to invite you to open your arms up and raise them up towards the sky, making sure that your shoulders are down. You can interlace your fingers and then turn your palms up. Again, making sure that you're meeting your body where you are. This might be your posture. You might want to bend your elbows. And then setting your weight into your left foot, I'd like you to lean your hips over to the left and kind of open the left side of your body and breathe. Just a couple of breaths here, and you can come out anytime I'm just your guide. Your body is your teacher. Coming back in when it feels comfortable. You can even make this a little bit of movement. Upright, and then leaning over to the left here, the right. Then everybody come back up. And I'd like you to lower your hands. And then if you remember how you had your palms, your fingers interlaced, do the opposite. Extending up, going nice and tall, shifting your weight into your right foot and your hips to the right. And then sending your shoulders curving gently and your spine curving gently over to the left. Nice and tall, taking a deep breath in. And then exhale. Good. And you can come out anytime. See how that feels. Come back in. Again, we don't want to do anything that's going to bring pain to the body. You can always come back to mountain pose. And we'll all come back to center and lower our hands. You might notice that you want to move your legs. You can pick up your heel of your right foot, just kind of roll your ankles, get some movement there. And then put that down, and then shift your weight into your right foot, pick up your left foot, and then gently begin to roll out your heels. Very good. We had some neck and shoulders today, so I'd like to invite you to take your right ear and then lower that to towards your right shoulder. You can take your left arm and kind of extend your fingers towards the ground. This might be your posture. If you need a little more, you can take just the weight of your hand without putting any pressure and just kind of holding the top of the left side of your head and breathe. Just noticing, what do you feel in the body right now? And again, you can come out anytime. If you experience discomfort, just come out. You can always go back in 50%. Just being aware of that edge. And breathe, making sure we're still breathing. And so I'll let that go. And we'll do the same to the other side, but noticing how the side might be different. So again, taking the left ear and extending it towards the left shoulder. Taking the right arm and grabbing or reaching the fingers towards the ground. Bringing some length into the side of your neck. And just noticing what this feels like before doing the same thing on the other side. Just being aware that it might be different. And you always have the option of taking your hand and just gently placing it on the side of your head and breathe. Good. You can always come back out and then go back in at 50% and just play with that edge, knowing where that limit is and moving just up to it. We want to experience growth, but not at the expense of damage. We can all let that go. All right, so from here, if you have a wall next to you or your chair, I'd like you to maybe put your weight into your right foot and do what you can to, if you can reach the top of your left ankle, just a very gentle stretch here. You might feel it in the top of your left thigh, nice and tall, just for a moment. Breathing. Let's let that go, and then we can switch. If you need a chair or a wall, just to help with your balance. And you might just pick your leg up. You may not be able to grab it, and that's okay. And we're going to be reaching for our right ankle here. And breathing. Nice and tall. All right. So I'd like to bring us back to our seats. We'll do one final movement. We'll do a twist, seated twist. All right, again, once again, finding the feet on the ground or the surface beneath you. Imagining that string from the top of your head, pulling you up, nice long spine. And then we're going to inhale, and on the exhale, you're going to twist to the right, and you can place your left hand on the outside of your right knee, and just experimenting again, where is my edge? So we know we've crossed edge when our breathing is not as deep. We experience numbness, tingling, pain, and just breathing here, noticing. And then letting go on that side. Again, inhaling nice and tall, and then beginning to twist to the left. And you can place your right hand on the outside of your left knee, tall spine, just experimenting. Where is that edge? Coming right up against it. And breathe. All right, and then you can go ahead and untwist. Just do any final movements that your body's asking for. Maybe articulating your spine left and right, stretching. I love taking breaks in the middle of longer work sessions. I totally find it gives me energy and reset. So hopefully you experience a little reset there. Yeah, and feel free to share anything you experienced in the chat as well. Yes, yoga snack. Yeah, if anything came up for you, you'd like to share in the chat, feel free to do that. All right, so I'd love to take just a moment to talk about beliefs. So I know we had a chance to begin to explore what burnout is for us, how it shows up in our lives. I believe that our beliefs are in fact very powerful, and not just personal beliefs, but there are cultural beliefs too. So there's like a cultural chant and a personal mantra, right? So I'd like for you to think about this and also share in the chat so the rest of us can kind of experience that as well. Can you share an example of maybe a cultural or a personal belief that might be contributing to burnout? So I'll give you an example. A cultural belief, at least where I live, burnout is a badge of honor, right? The busiest person wins. That could be an example. A personal belief could be, if I work really hard and I get accolades, I'll get the recognition, and that proves my worth, right? To my coworkers or to myself even. Some folks use overextending ourselves or what have you as a tool to avoid anxious thoughts. So if you have any clues to like maybe some beliefs that you've experienced or you've seen out in the world, please share them in the chat with us. Avoiding disappointing others. Having goals like improving the environment as a life goal, and then guilt when I let anything get in the way of that goal. I'm sure many of us relate to that as well. Procrastinating self-care. I'll begin self-care tomorrow. Anybody else? Right? What happens with that one? The work ethic. Idle bodies, idle mind. Tomorrow never comes. Yep, that's the thing when we put off taking care of ourselves. False belief that leads to burnout. We're only worthy or valuable when we're productive. Yes. Right? For those of us who work in sustainability, what can cause burnout is the lack of accolades, confronting hostility from some members of the community, right? It's not feeling appreciated, doing lots of work. We all have a universal need for appreciation. If anyone's a fan of nonviolent communication. We're aware that we all have these universal needs. That's definitely one of them. Another belief, I am indestructible. All right, so I would love to explore the idea of, not sure if this is a belief, working hard for years and seeing the world is still in terrible or even worse shape, right? You're on a treadmill and it's just, you're not going anywhere. Maybe you're going backwards. That doesn't feel good either. Yeah, so one of the tools that I used was really exploring my personal beliefs in every category of my life. So I'm going to share with you what I did to make this change, because I wouldn't be here right now talking to you at the Transition Summit, reactivated in my activism, my outreach with regenerative living, if it wasn't for these tools. So I really, really want to share these with you. So if you are taking notes, get your pen and paper or whatever you're using to take notes. I'm going to give you some ideas. All right, so beliefs are key, I believe. Mindset's key. There are life-affirming beliefs and there are non-life-affirming beliefs. I think we've talked about some of the not life-affirming beliefs. So what I did last year, I pretty much hit bottom. I experienced all of the things I think that could be experienced. I was disconnected from my social community. I mean, I couldn't like hug family members or friends for like 5 months or something. That was a big toll. And everyone has a different story and different experience, but I was not feeling good. So, sometimes that's motivating. So what I decided to do was to take an assessment of my life. I broke it into 12 categories. And I decided that I would look at each category and see not only what did I believe about it, what beliefs should I take on to get to the vision, my ideal vision for that category. And I also got really clear on my purpose. Why did I want this to happen for my health and fitness, for example? And then what strategies did I need to do to get myself there? So that's one solution. Assessing and rebalancing, and then kind of keeping tabs on everything, right? Because we know when you have a sense of agency, when you have and can reclaim control on areas of your life, that's the solution to burnout. I observed and interacted. So looking at my life and then making changes and then measuring those results and then reiterating, right? So premise, vision, purpose, and strategies. I got really clear on all 4 of those things. And then what I did is I identified of all the 12 categories in my life. So you've got health and fitness, intellectual life, emotional life, spiritual life, character, relationship, parenting, social, career, finance. Like there's a lot, right? There's a lot of things to manage. Oftentimes we just focus on one at the detriment of the others. And the others oftentimes contribute to that cup filling up and then overflowing. So what I decided to do was look at the category of focus, the category that I knew if I got that right, all the other categories would fall into place. And I identified for me, that was having a really clear life vision. So I spent time and I got really clear on that. And I also identified what was the most important second category that would support that focus. That was my intellectual category. So then I developed strategies to sharpen my intellectual abilities to learn more so I could have a better life vision. Category of focus, can you please repeat? Yeah, so I identified that if I focused on my intellectual category, if I learned more about how to develop this life vision, that my life vision would improve, it would get better. And then I identified the category of strength, the thing that I had the strongest hold on to support both of those. And for me, it was social. So I'm a community organizer. I love to learn in groups of people. So I decided to seek out people that I could learn with in my friend group because I had such strong social bonds. That's me. You might be different. So I looked at the big picture and I asked myself, I looked at my vision, was I asking enough of myself? Was I asking too much for what I was willing to exchange for that, right? And then I got to work implementing my strategies. I leveraged my strengths. And then I looked and I turned those strategies into habits that I tracked. So I have a tracker that I check a box. Did I do this thing? Yes or no? And then I held myself accountable. How did I do that? Just tracking it was one way. The other way was I joined an accountability group, and I've been meeting with them for, I would say, 8 months now. We all have goals, and we all share our progress, and we hold each other accountable. And I'll just tell you that was a huge win for me, was bringing accountability into play. And so because I did the assessment before and I've reassessed, I would say I made about a 200% improvement in terms of my general quality of life by implementing these strategies within a few months. It took, an insane situation, the pandemic really disconnecting me from all of the things that I had found in my life to bring me quality of life, to make me look really closely at what I could do to be even better. And I would say I definitely am flourishing now. And I'm overjoyed to be able to share this with you. I'm hoping that you got a little bit of something from the share. I know that we only have an hour and it's difficult to go really deep. So what I would love to offer to you is a way to reconnect. So I have a couple of ideas. One is I'd love to host another session so we can take a deeper dive into these tools. The other thing I'd like to do is I'm going to share this in the chat. I've set up for any summit participant, it's just a one-on-one session, 15 minutes. We can take a deeper dive. We can do a visioning exercise of your choice on a category of your choice if there's an area you'd really like to work on. And I'll share with you, there's my website, jenandreini.com. Another way you can take a deeper dive is I lead people through online courses. So the next one's on October 12th, but I will be doing more. And I've also extended a discount to anyone that's here at the summit. And I've included a promo code there. So if you go to my website, you can find the link to sign up for my newsletters, where I'll go ahead and share the events. You can also, if I can share my screen, I will go ahead and show you how to find all this stuff. All right. So hopefully you can see my screen. So if you go to more, and you go to book online, and you click ask me about the Lifebook Premium course, and you click book now, and then you can book 15 minutes with me, right? And we can talk more about this practice and apply it to yourself. And yeah, and then you can learn more just by browsing the website. All right, so I would love to open it up to questions. I know we covered a lot today. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can see any hands. Let's see here. The link is not showing up in the chat. Oh, I did a direct message. That's why. 1 second. Let me send it to everybody. All right. I'm also going to post this in the event. So to overview, if you want to take a deeper dive, book 15 minutes with me. No obligation. Just I'd love to meet you guys and see how I can support you. I've got a class in October where we go through 6 weeks, 2 categories a week. We take a really deep dive and you basically design your very own life book. And I support you along that journey. And we'll have a graduation. We'll talk about how to integrate that. I can't find the page. I'm not sure. Is anyone else having an issue with the website? No? Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions for me? I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions you might have. I know I kind of went really high level overview. Join the heart space to connect with one another. Thank you, Galen. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aina. Where is the heart space? Heart space is the Mighty Networks platform. I don't know if Galen, if you, oh, there's a link there. Yeah. Yeah.
And just also wanted to make sure everybody knew to the next events tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, Jen. That was amazing. Really, really, really important topic. And yeah, thank you. I hope people take you up on your wonderful offer. And I hope people saw the also the IRN has a newsletter that you can sign up to as well. It was in the chat. We're going to be continuing to offer things like this after the summit. So if you sign up to that newsletter, you'll be hearing about that. Tomorrow morning, we've got fierce vulnerability about healing our trauma and community. And then Friday morning, we'll have an empathy space with Montgomery and Suzanne, just a space to be holding you in whatever's coming up for you. So look forward to seeing some of you at the future sessions. And thanks again, Jen, for that wonderful session. And I hope to see you again too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to stick around if folks have questions.